The night Daniel walked out, the house fell into a silence so sharp that Emily thought she could hear her own heart tearing. It wasn't the suddenness of his departure that left her paralyzed. It was the calm, almost rehearsed way he packed his bags, as if he had been living a double life, preparing for this very moment. Emily stood in the kitchen doorway, clutching the edge of the counter with white knuckles, watching the man she had loved for 12 years close the zipper on his suitcase. "Dan, please," she whispered, her voice breaking. "Don't do this. We can fix whatever's wrong. Just talk to me." He didn't even look at her. "There's nothing to fix. I don't love you anymore, Emily. I haven't for a long time." Those words landed like a blade. She staggered back as though he had struck her. Emily's mind raced. Just last week, they had celebrated his promotion with champagne. Just yesterday, he had kissed her cheek on his way to work. And now, as if some cruel spell had been cast, the life they had built together was nothing more than ashes in his eyes. When he finally looked up, she noticed something new. His phone, buzzing on the counter, lit up with a name she didn't recognize. Clara. Emily's heart sank. So that was it. Another woman. Another life. Daniel snatched the phone before she could react. His jaw tightened, and for a second, she thought guilt might flicker in his eyes. But no, what she saw instead was irritation, as though she were nothing more than an obstacle keeping him from where he truly wanted to be. "I'm done, Emily," he repeated, cold and final. "Don't make this harder than it needs to be." And then he was gone. The first weeks after his departure were brutal. Emily moved through the house like a ghost, her footsteps echoing in rooms that now felt too big, too empty. She couldn't sleep in their bed, not when every crease in the mattress reminded her of him. She stopped cooking. What was the point of setting a table for one? But grief, Emily discovered, was a strange teacher. Beneath the waves of pain was something sharper, something hotter. Anger. How dare he? How dare Daniel throw away 12 years without a fight? How dare he replace her so easily, as if she were just another outdated piece of furniture to be left on the curb? And that name, Clara. Emily couldn't stop thinking about it. Who was she? What did she have that Emily didn't? And why did Daniel think he could walk away without consequences? One evening, after weeks of isolation, Emily's best friend Rachel came over. She found Emily in sweatpants, staring at a pile of unopened mail. "Em, you can't keep doing this to yourself," Rachel said gently. "He's not worth it." Emily laughed bitterly. 12 years, Rachel. I gave him 12 years of my life. And he throws it away for someone named Clara. Rachel's eyes narrowed. "Clara? You know who she is?" "Not yet." Something in Emily's voice made Rachel pause. It wasn't just heartbreak anymore, it was determination. Rachel sighed. "Em, promise me you're not thinking of doing something crazy." Emily looked up, her eyes glinting with a fire Rachel hadn't seen before. "Crazy? No. But revenge? Oh, Rachel, that's a different story." The first step was information. Emily started small. She logged into Daniel's old laptop. He hadn't even bothered to take it with him. It wasn't difficult to find what she was looking for. Emails, calendar invites, and then there it was. Dinner with Clara, Hotel Astoria. Suite reserved. Emily's chest tightened, but she forced herself to breathe. She copied every detail. Dates, times, reservations. And then she saw something else. A draft email, unsent but saved. "Clara, I'll be free soon. The divorce papers are almost ready. Emily won't put up a fight. She's too weak for that. We'll be able to start our new life without her dragging us down." Her hands trembled as she read it, rage flooding her veins. Too weak? If Daniel thought she was weak, he was about to learn just how wrong he was. Over the next few weeks, Emily began her quiet transformation. She rejoined the gym, started dressing with purpose, and forced herself out of bed every morning no matter how much it hurt. With every mile she ran, every weight she lifted, she felt herself shedding the skin of the woman Daniel had abandoned. But this wasn't just about healing. This was about strategy. Through a private investigator Rachel connected her with, Emily learned more than she ever expected. Clara wasn't just anyone. She was a financial consultant at Daniel's company. Younger, ambitious, and rumored to be ruthless when it came to climbing the corporate ladder. Suddenly, everything clicked. Daniel hadn't just left her for another woman. He had left her for someone who could advance his career, someone he thought would make him look powerful, successful. Emily's heartbreak solidified into something colder. This wasn't just betrayal. This was calculation. And if Daniel wanted to play games with people's lives like chess pieces, Emily was about to flip the entire board. Her first move came sooner than expected. One Friday night, she dressed in her sharpest black dress and walked into the very hotel bar where Daniel and Clara were having drinks. She saw them instantly. Daniel, in his tailored suit, his hand resting far too comfortably on Clara's arm. Clara laughing too loudly at something he said, her eyes gleaming with ambition. Emily didn't flinch. She didn't cry. Instead, she smiled. A slow, dangerous smile, and walked straight past them to the bartender. "Martini, extra dry," she ordered, her voice smooth. Daniel spotted her then. His face went pale, the confident smirk vanishing. Clara turned too, curiosity flickering in her expression. "Emily?" Daniel stammered, standing halfway. Emily swiveled her head, locking eyes with him. Her smile widened. "Daniel, what a surprise!" The tension at that table was thick enough to cut with a knife. Clara shifted uncomfortably, glancing between them. Emily, however, felt no discomfort at all. She was in control, and that was only the beginning. By the time Emily left that hotel bar, she knew two things for certain. One, Clara had no idea how deeply she was being used by Daniel. And two, Daniel underestimated Emily so severely that he had no idea she was already planning his downfall. As she walked into the night air, the city buzzing around her, Emily felt a clarity she hadn't known since before her marriage began unraveling. This wasn't about begging Daniel to come back. This was about making sure he regretted ever walking away. And Emily was just getting started. The image of Daniel's face in the hotel bar, drained of color, stripped of arrogance, was one Emily carried home like a trophy. For the first time in weeks, she slept soundly. But revenge couldn't just be a fleeting moment. It had to be thorough, calculated, undeniable. If Daniel had chosen ambition and Clara over loyalty and love, then Emily would strike him where it hurt most: his reputation, his career, his pride. Emily began with patience. She shadowed Daniel's life from afar, using what she'd learned from the private investigator. His company, Stratton and Pierce, was notorious for office politics. Executives rose and fell, not just by performance, but by perception. One whisper, one scandal, could be the end of someone's career. And Daniel, she knew, had skeletons. She dug through old financial records, emails, files he'd carelessly left synced to the cloud. She discovered discrepancies, expense reports that didn't add up, client dinners charged twice, suspicious consulting fees that pointed to kickbacks. For days, she organized everything into neat, damning folders. Evidence he thought would remain buried was now her weapon. Rachel, ever the voice of caution, watched with wide eyes as Emily outlined her plan over coffee. "Em, are you sure you want to go this far?" Exposing him at work. "It's not just revenge. It's war." Emily stirred her coffee slowly, her eyes steady. "He chose war when he betrayed me. I'm just choosing to win." The next step was Clara. Emily couldn't deny it. She hated the woman. But as much as she wanted to, she couldn't blame Clara entirely. From what Emily had observed at the hotel bar, Clara didn't seem to know the full extent of Daniel's deceit. She believed she was the chosen one, the future Mrs. Daniel Whitman, the woman who had won. Emily smirked. That illusion wouldn't last long. She arranged a chance meeting. Through her investigator, she discovered Clara's Saturday morning routine: yoga at a boutique studio, followed by coffee at a nearby cafe. Emily dressed casually, blending in with the weekend crowd, and positioned herself at a table near the window. Sure enough, Clara arrived, her designer tote slung over her shoulder, her phone glued to her hand. She ordered a latte and sat 2 tables away. Emily waited until Clara looked up from her phone before making her move. "Clara, right?" she asked, her tone polite but edged with intrigue. Clara blinked, surprised. "Yes. Do I know you?" Emily smiled faintly. "Not yet, but I know Daniel." The reaction was immediate. Clara's posture stiffened, her expression flickering from confusion to suspicion. "Daniel? You mean Daniel Whitman?" Emily nodded. "I'm his wife." The silence that followed was delicious. Clara's mouth opened, then closed again. Her latte trembled slightly in her hand. I thought you were separated," Clara stammered. Emily leaned in, her voice low and deliberate. "Separated, maybe. Divorced? Not even close. But I'm not here to fight with you, Clara. I just thought you deserved to know the kind of man you're dealing with." She slid a folded piece of paper across the table, a copy of the unsent email Daniel had written, the one where he called Emily too weak to fight. Clara hesitated before unfolding it. As her eyes scanned the page, her face drained of color. "He said this?" Clara whispered. Emily straightened, her smile thin but sharp. "He said it, he meant it, and he'll say the same about you one day. Men like Daniel don't change, they just replace." For a moment, Clara was speechless. Then, almost defensively, she muttered, "He loves me. He said we'd have a future together." Emily's gaze hardened. "He said the same to me once." She stood, leaving Clara with the paper, the truth, and the seeds of doubt firmly planted. Over the following weeks, Emily's plan unfolded like clockwork. At Stratton and Pierce, rumors began circulating about irregularities in the finance department. Anonymous emails, crafted with precision and supported by the evidence Emily had compiled, landed in the inboxes of board members. The whispers grew louder, the tension thicker. Meanwhile, Clara's demeanor shifted. Emily saw it in subtle glimpses. Clara leaving Daniel's side abruptly at a charity gala, her smile faltering when Daniel whispered something in her ear, her eyes darting with suspicion whenever he checked his phone. Emily didn't need to confront her again. She had given Clara the truth, and the truth was corrosive. It would eat away at her relationship with Daniel without Emily lifting another finger. Then came the night. Everything began to collapse. Daniel arrived at a shareholder dinner looking unusually tense. Emily wasn't there. She hadn't been invited, of course, but Rachel's husband, who worked in the same industry, later described the scene in vivid detail. Daniel looked like he was sweating bullets, he told Emily over the phone. And when one of the board members asked about the financial discrepancies, he almost choked on his drink. "You should have seen him, like a deer in headlights." Emily smiled to herself. Good, let him sweat. The next morning, she received a message she hadn't expected. From Clara. "We need to talk." They met in the same cafe, but this time, Clara looked different. The polished confidence was gone, replaced by exhaustion and anger. "You were right," Clara said, her voice flat. "He's been lying to me. About the divorce, about the money, everything. I should have known." Emily sipped her tea calmly. "We all should have, but Daniel has a talent for lies." Clara's jaw tightened. "What are you planning to do to him?" Emily arched a brow. "Why?" "Because," Clara said, leaning in, her voice low. "I want in." For a moment, Emily was stunned. She had expected Clara to lash out, to defend Daniel even as the truth unraveled. But betrayal was a universal language, and Clara now spoke it fluently. Emily allowed herself a slow smile. Then let's make sure Daniel learns what happens when he underestimates women. Together, they crafted the final blow. Clara provided insider knowledge, names of clients Daniel had mishandled, details of side deals he had hidden from the company, weaknesses only someone close to him could know. Emily wove it all into a comprehensive report and delivered it anonymously to the board. The impact was immediate. Investigations were launched. Meetings were called. Daniel's spotless image began to fracture. And Emily? She watched it all unfold with a quiet satisfaction. The last piece, however, was personal. One evening, Daniel showed up at her door, his suit wrinkled, his eyes bloodshot. He looked nothing like the confident man who had walked out weeks ago. "Emily," he said, his voice hoarse, "we need to talk." She stood in the doorway, arms crossed. "About what? Your girlfriend? Your lies? Or the fact that your career is crumbling?" His eyes widened. You did this." Emily tilted her head, her expression calm, almost amused. "Did what, Daniel? Expose the truth? That was all you." For the first time, she saw him falter. Really falter. His shoulders sagged, his mouth opened, but no words came out. "Please," he whispered finally, "I need your help." Emily let the silence stretch, savoring the moment. Then, slowly, she shook her head. "No, Daniel, you made your choice. Now you get to live with it." And with that, she closed the door in his face. As Emily leaned against the door, her heart pounding, she realized something. This wasn't just revenge anymore. It was liberation. Daniel had tried to break her, but instead, he had forged her into someone stronger, sharper, unstoppable. And his downfall? That was only the beginning. Daniel had always been the man who walked into a room and owned it. His colleagues respected him, clients trusted him, and women admired him. But now he was a shadow of that man, paranoid, restless, haunted. Emily followed the fallout like someone watching a house of cards crumble in slow motion. She didn't even need to interfere anymore. The seeds she had planted were sprouting everywhere. The investigation at Stratton and Pierce deepened. The board demanded explanations for the financial irregularities. Clients questioned missing funds. Competitors whispered gleefully about Whitman's scandal. Daniel tried to bluff his way through, but the evidence spoke louder than his excuses. Clara, now firmly on Emily's side, discreetly fed the investigators information that left Daniel cornered. At one meeting, according to Rachel's husband, Daniel lost his composure completely. He slammed his hand on the table and accused someone of framing him, Rachel's husband recounted. But the board wasn't buying it. One of them said, "If this is a frame job, you've walked right into it." He looked like he was about to explode. By the end of the week, Daniel was suspended pending review. His corner office was stripped, his name removed from internal communications. Emily, meanwhile, transformed. She had once been the woman who lingered in Daniel's shadow, her life revolving around his career and his needs. Now, she walked with a confidence that turned heads. She started volunteering at a nonprofit Rachel recommended, and before long, her organizational skills earned her a leadership position. She also began reconnecting with people she had neglected during her marriage. Old friends, colleagues, even family members who had drifted away. Each reunion reminded her that she was more than Daniel's wife. She was Emily Whitman, resilient and capable in her own right. Still, the satisfaction of watching Daniel unravel was undeniable. It was Clara who delivered the next blow. Emily received a late-night call from her, her voice trembling but resolute. "I ended it," Clara said. Emily raised an eyebrow, though Clara couldn't see it. "Ended what?" "With Daniel. He begged, he promised, he even cried. But I can't. I can't be with a man like that. He used me, Emily. just like you said. Emily's silence stretched until Clara added softly, "You were right about everything." For a moment, Emily almost felt pity. Almost. "Don't waste any more of your time on him," Emily said finally. "Men like Daniel don't deserve it." And with that, Clara was out of the picture. Another support beam knocked from beneath Daniel's collapsing world. One rainy evening, Daniel showed up at Emily's door again. But this time, he wasn't in a suit. He looked disheveled, soaked through, his hair plastered to his forehead, his tie missing. Emily hesitated before opening the door, then leaned against the frame, arms crossed. Daniel. He looked at her like a drowning man grasping for a lifeline. "Emily, please. Just listen." She didn't move. "Say what you came to say." "I made a mistake," he said quickly. "Leaving you, Clara, everything. I was stupid. I was selfish. But you and me, we had something real. Please, give me another chance." Emily's laughter was sharp, humorless. "Another chance? Daniel, you didn't just leave me. You tried to erase me. You told Clara I was weak, that I wouldn't fight. Do you remember that?" His eyes widened. "You? How did you?" Emily cut him off. "Doesn't matter. What matters is that you were wrong. I did fight, and I won." Daniel reached for her arm, desperation twisting his features. "Emily, please. I've lost everything. My job, Clara, my reputation. I need you." Emily pulled back, her voice icy. "You don't need me, Daniel. You need someone to clean up your mess. But I'm not that woman anymore." For the first time, he had no rebuttal. His shoulders slumped, his mouth opened, but no words came out. Emily let the silence hang, then closed the door in his face once more. This time, she didn't lean against it afterward. She walked away, calm and steady, like someone who had finally laid a ghost to rest. The board's decision arrived 2 weeks later. Daniel was officially terminated. The company cited ethical misconduct and breach of fiduciary duty. In plain English, his career was over. The news spread fast. Industry blogs picked up the story, gossip forums dissected it, former colleagues distanced themselves. The man who once commanded respect was now a cautionary tale. Emily read the headlines with a quiet satisfaction. It wasn't about revenge anymore. It was about justice. About balance. Daniel had underestimated her, dismissed her, betrayed her, and now the world knew exactly who he really was. Emily stood in front of the mirror one morning, adjusting the blazer she had bought for a nonprofit board meeting. She barely recognized the woman staring back, strong, composed, radiant. Rachel popped her head into the room. "Ready to take on the world?" Emily smiled. "I already have." They both laughed, but Emily's heart swelled with something deeper. She wasn't just surviving anymore. She was thriving. And Daniel? He was nothing more than a lesson, a painful, unforgettable lesson, but a lesson nonetheless. Still, late at night, Emily sometimes replayed their last confrontation. The desperation in his eyes, the tremor in his voice. Once upon a time, she might have caved. She might have believed his promises, forgiven his lies, but not anymore. Daniel had walked away thinking she was weak. Instead, she had become the strongest version of herself. And that strength was the sweetest revenge of all. Daniel's downfall should have ended with his career, but Emily knew men like him rarely learned their lesson the first time. They clung to scraps of pride, convinced they could claw their way back. And Daniel was no exception. After his termination, Daniel tried freelancing, pitching himself as a consultant to former clients. But no one trusted him anymore. His name was tainted, his reputation destroyed. Within months, his savings dwindled. The fancy condo he'd rented with Clara was gone, his car repossessed. Word reached Emily, through Rachel's ever-reliable network, that he was living in a cramped apartment on the far edge of the city, drowning in debt. Emily didn't gloat. Not openly, but privately she couldn't help but savor the irony. The man who had once called her too weak to fight was now the one broken, fragile, abandoned. While Daniel floundered, Emily soared. The nonprofit she had joined quickly became her passion. She poured her organizational skills and leadership into it, and soon she was spearheading major initiatives: fundraisers, community programs, partnerships with local businesses. Her work drew attention. Articles highlighted her dedication, her resilience, her story of reinvention. Invitations rolled in, speaking engagements, board opportunities, even offers to consult. For the first time in her life, Emily wasn't just Daniel Whitman's wife. She was Emily Carter again, her maiden name reclaimed, her identity restored, and she was thriving. The true twist came one afternoon when Emily was invited to a prestigious charity gala. She accepted, of course, unaware that fate had one last card to play. The night of the event, dressed in a sleek gown, Emily walked into the glittering ballroom with Rachel at her side. Conversations buzzed, champagne glasses clinked, music floated through the air, and then she saw him. Daniel. He was there, in a wrinkled suit that had clearly seen better days, standing awkwardly near the bar. She almost laughed. What was he doing here? But then she realized he wasn't a guest. He was staff. A former golden boy of the corporate world, now reduced to working temp jobs at events just to scrape by. Their eyes met across the room. His froze, wide and stricken. Hers softened, not with pity, but with clarity. She didn't need to humiliate him. His life had already done that for her. Later that night, as she stepped onto the balcony for fresh air, Daniel approached. His shoulders sagged, his expression defeated. "Emily?" he said softly. She turned, her glass of champagne catching the light. "Daniel." He swallowed hard. I wanted to say I'm sorry for everything. I know it's too late, but I needed you to hear it." For a long moment, Emily studied him. The man before her wasn't the arrogant executive she had once loved. He was smaller somehow, stripped of power, of illusions, and for the first time she felt nothing. No anger, no longing, just peace. "I believe you," she said finally. His eyes flickered with hope. "Then is there any chance?" She cut him off gently. "No, Daniel, there's no chance. But I do hope you find a way to be better, for yourself." Her words weren't cruel. They weren't vengeful. They were final. Daniel's shoulders slumped further. He nodded, muttered a quiet, "Thank you," and walked away into the crowd. Emily turned back to the city lights, a quiet smile on her lips. When she rejoined Rachel inside, her friend noticed the serenity in her expression. "What happened out there?" Rachel asked. Emily linked her arm with hers. "Closure." From that night on, Daniel was nothing more than a ghost of the past. Emily never heard from him again, and she never looked back. Her life was her own now, rich with purpose, surrounded by people who respected her, filled with opportunities she never imagined. And the sweetest part? Her revenge wasn't in his suffering. It was in her survival. Her success. Her transformation into someone stronger, brighter, untouchable. Months later, at a fundraiser Emily hosted, she stood on stage addressing a packed hall. Her voice carried with quiet authority. "Life will test us," she said. "Sometimes in ways we never expect. Sometimes the people we trust most will betray us. But we are not defined by what is done to us. We are defined by how we rise after." The room erupted in applause. Emily smiled, her heart full. Her story had begun with betrayal, but it had ended with triumph. And as the crowd cheered, she knew one thing for certain. Daniel had left thinking she was weak. But in the end, her strength was the story the world would remember.